মিটিং এখনো স্টার্ট হয়নি। আমাদের স্টেট ডিরেক্টরকে বলেছিলাম
Hello. Hello.
हेलो
प्रदीप आपका साउंड नहीं आ रहा है. अब स्टार्ट नहीं हुआ है प्रदीप.
नहीं सर, वो कुछ ये यूट्यूब लिंक दे रहा है इसीलिए सर.
अच्छा. तो स्टार्ट.
स्टार्ट होले आपको सब फोन कर देंगे.
हाँ ठीक है.
Hello, welcome. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Am I audible?
Yes sir.
Okay. Okay. We are going to start our program. Good morning, everybody. Today we are going to celebrate International Youth Day, and on the eve of International Youth Day celebration, today we have organized seminar and a debate competition, and I welcome everyone. And with this, right now, I would like to call Dr. Porimal Ghosh, our bursar and associate professor of physics and governing body member. He will deliver welcome speech. Welcome all our dignitaries, participants, and our resource person. Please, Dr. Porimal Ghosh, you start the program with the welcome address to all our dignitaries, participants, and resource persons.
Good morning to all the dignitaries and delegates from all parts of the state of West Bengal. Myself, Dr. Porimal Ghosh, welcoming you all to the program organized by the Nehru Yuva Kendra Paschim Bardhaman, NSS unit of Banadal Voluntary College Asansol, in collaboration with West Bengal State AIDS Prevention and Control Society, on the eve of the celebration of International Youth Day. আন্তর্জাতিক যুব দিবস সম্পর্কে আমরা যদি একটু ইতিহাসটা দেখি আর কি, তাহলে আমরা দেখব 1985 সালে যখন ইন্টারন্যাশনাল ইয়ার অফ ইউথ ডিক্লেয়ার করা হয়েছিল, তারপর থেকেই আমরা এটাকে সেলিব্রেশন শুরু করি এবং এরপর in the year of 2000, United Nations Organization declared 12th of August as the International Youth Day, and from that we are annually celebrating this day. The main theme of this year's International Youth Day was youth engagement for global action. Actually, আমরা যদি এখন আমাদের সিচুয়েশনটাকে একটু পরখ করি, তাহলে দেখতে পাবো যে আমরা একটা খুবই ক্রাইসিস সিচুয়েশনের মধ্য দিয়ে গোটা ওয়ার্ল্ড চলেছে আর কি, একটা অসম যুদ্ধ চলছে আর কি, একটা করোনা ভাইরাস, তার সঙ্গে আমাদের হিউম্যান সোসাইটি, এবং সেই যুদ্ধের আমরা সবাই তার যে আমরা কি বলবো ফলাফল, সেটা সবাই আমরা বুঝতে পারছি ব্যাপারটা আর কি। অ্যাকচুয়ালি দেখা যাচ্ছে যে আমাদের এখন ওয়ার্ল্ডে যদি আমরা বায়োমাস ক্যালকুলেট করি তাহলে দেখা যাবে সেটা মোটামুটি 200 বিলিয়ন কিলোগ্রামস মতো হবে আর কি। আর আমরা যদি এখন করোনা ভাইরাসের এই যে স্প্রেড হয়েছে সেটা যদি আমরা একটা ক্যালকুলেশন করি, সেটা মোটামুটি 50 গ্রামের আশপাশে আসে। এখানে আমরা এটাকে অসম যুদ্ধ বললাম, এবং এই যুদ্ধের যে ওয়েপন্স গুলো আর সেই ওয়েপন্স গুলো আমরা আবার দেখতে পাই না। আমরা যতই চেষ্টা করি না কেন সেখান থেকে বোধহয় আমরা খুব সহজে মানে রেহাই পাবো সেটা বলা যায় না। এই কারণে আমরা অনেক একটা সমস্ত জায়গা থেকে একটা মানে বার্তা দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করা হচ্ছে, যেটাকে আমরা সোশ্যাল ডিস্টেন্সিং বলছি। এই সোশ্যাল ডিস্টেন্সিং এর মানে জায়গা থেকেই আমরা আজকের এই যে ভার্চুয়াল মোডের যে আমরা অনলাইন একটা প্রোগ্রাম করার চেষ্টা করছি আর কি, সেটা জাস্ট ওইটার পরিপ্রেক্ষিতে আর কি। যেহেতু আমি এই একটু আগে এটা দিয়ে শুরু করলাম, WHO কথা অনুযায়ী the individuals in the age of 10 to 19 years age are called adolescents, and youth are in the age group of 15 to 24 years, and all the people in the age group 10 to 24 are young people. So youth এর এটাই ডেফিনেশন আর কি। গান্ধীজি বলেছিলেন যে শিক্ষকরা হলো জাতির মেরুদণ্ড, আর ইউথ হলো ওই মেরুদণ্ডটা বাদ দিয়ে আমাদের যা কিছু থাকে সেই জায়গায়, এবং তারাই দেশের বা বিশ্বের চালিকা শক্তি। এই কারণেই বোধহয় ইউনাইটেড নেশন অর্গানাইজেশন আমরা এটাকে এই ইয়ারটাকে আমরা ডিক্লেয়ার করেছি এনগেজমেন্ট অফ ইউথ ফর অল লেভেলস। এই জন্যই আমি যেটা নিয়ে একটু আগে শুরু করেছিলাম, আমাদের যদি আমরা পৃথিবীর দিকে তাকাই এই মুহূর্তে, তাহলে দেখবো মোটামুটি 2 কোটির আশপাশে করোনা আক্রান্ত অলরেডি হয়ে গেছে আর কি, এবং 7.5 লাখের ওপর মানুষ মারা গেছেন। আমাদের ভারতের এই সিচুয়েশনটা প্রায় 22 লাখ লোক আজ পর্যন্ত আক্রান্ত, এবং 50,000 এর আশপাশে মানুষকে আমরা হারিয়েছি এই প্যান্ডেমিকের জন্য আর কি। এইসব ক্রাইসিস গুলো ছাড়াও আরো অনেক ক্রাইসিস আছে অনেক দেশে, মায়ানমার, সিরিয়া, এইসব জায়গাতে অনেক ধরনের হিউম্যানিটেরিয়ান ক্রাইসিস চলছে আর কি। সেই সবগুলোর সঙ্গে যদি আমরা লড়াই করতে চাই তাহলে আমাদের ইউথদের কিন্তু এনগেজমেন্ট করাটা খুবই দরকার। এটাই বোধহয় তাৎপর্য ইন্টারন্যাশনাল ইউথ ডে সেলিব্রেশন। এবং আমি ধন্যবাদ জানাতে চাই আমাদের এনওয়াই কে যারা আছেন তাদেরকে, এবং আমাদের কলেজের এনএসএস ইউনিট এবং বিবি কলেজের যিনি মানে অধ্যক্ষ, তাদের প্রচেষ্টায় যে আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠান শুরু হচ্ছে, তাদেরকে সকলকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই। এবং আমি অর্গানাইজিং কমিটির তরফ থেকে ওয়েলকাম জানাচ্ছি এনওয়াই কে স্টেট ডাইরেক্টর মিস্টার নবীন নায়ক, মিস্টার প্রদীপ সাহা, ডিস্ট্রিক্ট এনওয়াই কে পশ্চিম বর্ধমানের কোঅর্ডিনেটর, ডক্টর অনিমেষ মন্ডল, প্রোগ্রাম অফিসার অফ এনএসএস ইউনিট বিবি কলেজ। সর্বোপরি আমাদের যিনি আজকের স্পিকার আছেন ডক্টর সুমন রঞ্জন দাস, অ্যাসোসিয়েট প্রফেসর ইন ডিপার্টমেন্ট অফ মেডিসিন, ডিভিশন অফ ইনফেকশাস ডিজিজ, ভ্যান্ডারবিল্ট ইউনিভার্সিটি, ইউএসএ, এখানে আমাদের প্রোগ্রামে অংশগ্রহণ করার জন্য। এবং আরো যারা রয়েছেন যে সমস্ত ইউথ, তাদেরকে বাদ দিয়ে তো আজকের অনুষ্ঠান হতে পারে না, তাদের সকলকেও আমি আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। আমি আমার কৃতজ্ঞতা জ্ঞাপন করতে চাই আমাদের অর্গানাইজিং কমিটি, বিশেষ করে আমাদের মাননীয় অধ্যক্ষ মহাশয় ডক্টর অমিতাভ বাসুকে আমাকে এই স্বাগতিক ভাষণ দেওয়ার পারমিশন দেওয়ার জন্য বা দায়িত্ব দেওয়ার জন্য। আমি আর বিশেষ কিছু বলতে চাই না। আমাদের যে অনুষ্ঠান সে অনুষ্ঠান সফল হোক এই বলে আমি আমার প্রিন্সিপাল স্যারকে অনুরোধ করব আজকের যে অনুষ্ঠান সেই অনুষ্ঠানের ইনঅগ্রাল অ্যাড্রেস দেওয়ার জন্য। সকলকে অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ। আজকের অনুষ্ঠান সফল হোক।
Thank you very much, Dr. Porimal Ghosh. On behalf of the Banwarilal Bhalotia College, Asansol, we are really thankful to District National Youth Kendra Paschim Bardhaman, and also want to thank West Bengal State AIDS Prevention and Control Society. They are jointly organized this program in collaboration with our NSS unit. I really grateful to them for selecting our college as a venue of this program. Earlier, we have a very good relationship with the NYK and this organization, because we have earlier organized also many programs with them, consumer awareness program, Women's Day celebration program, and many more programs we have already organized with them. And all the programs we have successfully organized. So I hope this program will be a grand success. And keeping in mind the heterogeneity of the participants, most of the participants here. So our program deliberations of our program will be based on bilingual, so that all the students they can understand also. And we are really fortunate that we got a resource person, speaker Dr. Sumon Ranjan Das. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to him for giving consent to deliver his valuable lecture in front of our students to illuminate us regarding this pandemic and virus. So what is the objective of organizing this program, the Youth Day National Program? Because the main objective of our celebration of Youth Day, that more and more youth they should participate in the nation building process. They should aware not only not aware about the political, social, and economic activities of our countries, because the youth, they are the future, they are the hope of our country. And if they are not aware about the situation of our country, so it is not possible for any country to progress. So it is very much important that our youth they should be literate and well aware about the different aspects of our country. So usually in Youth Day, we celebrate and organize different type of program like debate competition, poster competitions, different cultural activities, extracurricular activities to make our and involve our youth. Right now, if we see in the Indian context, that India is, if we see the demographic profile of the India is a country of the youth. Most of the young people up to 2040 will enjoy the dividend of the youth generation, because our average age of our country will be 39 or 32 in comparison of our country, whereas most of the countries the average age is 45, 46. So it will be a great opportunity in front of India if we able to increase the skill of our youth and education level. If we emphasize on the vocational education and skill enhancement education of our youth, so that we can supply the human resource power to the other country. It will be a great benefit, great dividend for our country that help the economic progress of our country. And right now, the situation what we are facing, we all are aware about that the current pandemic situation, the people lost their lives and livelihood also. Near about 605 million people, they lost their uh, uh, mm, uh, livelihood during this session. And if we see the NEPP ratio, it is really alarming, and every year it is increasing. NEP ratio means the national youth that are not employed, they are not in education and not in training, and this ratio is increasing every year. And right now they are about near about 650 million people, that is 65 crore people, youth, they are not involved in employment, education, and training. And if we see the ratio, the 30% women and 13% of the male, they are, is not involved in any type of education, training, and employment. So you can imagine the huge huge portion of our human resource that can be utilized in an effective way, that can involve in the nation building process. So they are the wastage. So we have to think the new mode of generation of employment are due to, right now we are witnessing that due to advancement of technology, there is many sector that is employment is reducing, but at the same time there is new scope also generating. So we have to think about innovatively, so that we can create new opportunities, new job for our youth. And at the same time, youth they should participate in the different activities of our country, so that our nation should always be in track, in proper track. So this is the goal. With this objective, with this goal, we are going to organize this seminar and the debate competition, and I hope that this program will be a grand success. And at the end, I want to thank all our participants, our research persons, and the officials of the Nehru Yuva Kendra and the West Bengal State AIDS Prevention and Control Society Authority for helping us to organize this program. And I wish a grand success of this program. Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone. খুব কম সময়ের মধ্যে বিবি কলেজ তারা ইন্টারন্যাশনাল ইউথ ডে প্রোগ্রাম ওয়েবিনার অর্গানাইজ করছে। তার জন্য নেহেরু যুব কেন্দ্র পশ্চিম বর্ধমানের পক্ষ থেকে আমরা অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ জানাই। প্রিন্সিপাল ডক্টর অমিতাভ বসু, ডক্টর অনিমেষ মন্ডল, এনএসএস, আজকের মেন স্পিকার ডক্টর সুমন রঞ্জন দাস। নেহেরু যুব কেন্দ্র পশ্চিম বর্ধমান, আমরা এর আগেও বিবি কলেজের সাথে প্রোগ্রাম করেছি, বিশেষত কনজিউমার অ্যাফেয়ার্স, উমেন্স ডে খুব সাকসেসফুল, এবং টিম বিবি কলেজের যারা আছেন, প্রফেসর, টিচিং স্টাফ এবং স্টুডেন্ট, তারা সাকসেসফুলি এটাকে অর্গানাইজ করেছেন। তার জন্য নেহেরু যুব কেন্দ্রের পক্ষ থেকে ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি। অ্যাকচুয়ালি নেহেরু যুব কেন্দ্র এবং এনএসএস, the sister concern of Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, নেহেরু যুব কেন্দ্র কাজ করে রুরাল ইউথদের জন্য, এনএসএস স্টুডেন্ট, কলেজ স্কুল লেভেলে যারা স্টুডেন্ট আছে তাদের জন্য। মূল উদ্দেশ্য হচ্ছে যে যুবকদেরকে তাদেরকে সংগঠিত করে ন্যাশন বিল্ডিং অ্যাক্টিভিটির সাথে যুক্ত করা। নেহেরু যুব কেন্দ্র পশ্চিম বর্ধমান যে কাজটা করে, নেহেরু যুব কেন্দ্র বিভিন্ন ইউথ ক্লাব এস্টাবলিশ করে, তাদের সাথে অ্যাফিলিয়েশন করে, তাদের মাধ্যমে কাজ করে। অ্যাট প্রেজেন্ট 363 ইউথ ক্লাব নেহরু যুব কেন্দ্রের সাথে যুক্ত অল ওভার দা পশ্চিম বর্ধমান ডিস্ট্রিক্ট, যাতে যুবকরা যারা আমাদের জাতির ভবিষ্যৎ, এবং আমরা যদি দেখি যে একটু নেহরু যুব কেন্দ্রের ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড, যারা স্বাধীনতায় অংশগ্রহণ করেছিল প্রত্যেকেই দেশের যুব সম্পাদা। নেতাজি সুভাষচন্দ্র বোস থেকে শুরু করে শহীদ ক্ষুদিরাম, বিনয় বাদল দীনেশ তাদের যৌবন অবস্থায় দেশের জন্য লড়াই করেছিলেন। ক্ষুদিরাম তো মাত্র 18 বছর বয়সের আগেই তার ফাঁসি হয়ে গিয়েছিল। যুবকদের মধ্যে দেশপ্রেম, গতিশীলতা তাদের মধ্যে আছে, সেইটাকে যাতে আমাদের দেশ পরিচালনার ক্ষেত্রে তাদের যাতে অংশগ্রহণ সুনিশ্চিত করা যায়, এই উদ্দেশ্যকে সামনে রেখে নেহরু যুব কেন্দ্র বিভিন্ন রকম অ্যাক্টিভিটিস করে, যাতে যুবকরা আধুনিক ভারতবর্ষের একজন সুনাগরিক হতে পারে। তাদেরকে বিভিন্ন স্কিল ডেভেলপমেন্ট, লিডারশিপ ট্রেনিং নেহরু যুব কেন্দ্রের মাধ্যমে দিয়ে তাদেরকে তৈরি করা হয়। আরো বিভিন্ন অ্যাক্টিভিটিস আছে, অ্যাডভেঞ্চার প্রোগ্রাম, কালচারাল প্রোগ্রাম। বিশেষত যে বর্তমানে যে কোভিড-19 যে প্যান্ডামিক, সেখানে নেহরু যুব কেন্দ্রের ভলেন্টিয়াররা সাকসেসফুলি বিভিন্ন অ্যাওয়ারনেস প্রোগ্রাম করছে। ইতিমধ্যে প্রায় 10,000-এর উপরে ইউথ ভলেন্টিয়ার আমাদের সাথে যুক্ত হয়েছে ফর কোভিড অ্যাওয়ারনেস প্রোগ্রামের জন্য, এবং তারা বিভিন্নভাবে মানুষকে যে সোশ্যাল ডিস্টেন্স মেনটেন করার জন্য, এবং কিছু কিছু জায়গায় ক্লাবগুলো তাদের নিজেদের সামর্থ্য অনুযায়ী ফুড, অন্যান্য যে ফেস মাস্ক ইত্যাদি তারা ডিস্ট্রিবিউট করেছে। এবং আগামী দিনেও যাতে আমরা এই যে মারাত্মক যে ভয়ানক রোগ কোভিড-19 থেকে মুক্তি পাই, তার জন্য আমরা কাজ করে যাচ্ছি আমাদের ভলেন্টিয়াররা। এবং তার সাথে সাথে অবশ্যই এনএসএস একই ধরনের কাজ করছে। এনওয়াইকে আগেই বলেছি, এনওয়াইকে এবং এনএসএস একই অর্গানাইজেশন, মিনিস্ট্রি অফ ইউথ অ্যাফেয়ার্স অ্যান্ড স্পোর্টস, গভর্নমেন্ট অফ ইন্ডিয়া, একই আমব্রেলা আন্ডারে আমরা সবাই কাজ করে চলেছি। তো আজকের যে প্রোগ্রামটা আছে ইন্টারন্যাশনাল ইউথ ডে, সেখানে আমাদের প্রিন্সিপাল সাহেব খুব সুন্দরভাবে বলেছেন, এবং আমাদের যিনি মাস্টার আছেন উনিও খুব সুন্দরভাবে ব্যাখ্যা করেছেন। এরপরে আমাদের আজকে দুটো পার্ট, যে একটা হচ্ছে যে সেমিনার, তার সাথে আছে আমাদের এলোকেশন কম্পিটিশন, যেটা এইটা সেমিনারে শেষেই হবে। তো আমি আশা করব প্রত্যেকে যারা আছেন, স্টুডেন্ট, প্রফেসর, স্টাফ, সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ দিচ্ছি এই প্রোগ্রামে অংশগ্রহণ করার জন্য। নমস্কার।
ধন্যবাদ স্যার। আমরা কলেজের পক্ষ থেকে মিস্টার প্রদীপ কুমার সাহা, যিনি নেহরু যুব কেন্দ্র পশ্চিম বর্ধমান ডিস্ট্রিক্ট কোঅর্ডিনেটর, তাকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই তার মূল্যবান বক্তব্য রাখার জন্য। আমরা মনে করতে চাই যে আমাদের কলেজের সঙ্গে নেহরু যুব কেন্দ্রের একটা আর্থিক সম্পর্ক রয়েছে, এবং আমরা সারা বছর ধরেই নানা ধরনের অনুষ্ঠান অর্গানাইজ করি জয়েন্টলি। ধন্যবাদ স্যার আপনাকে আমাদের এই সুযোগ দেওয়ার জন্য। এখন আমি আমাদের কলেজের যে এনএসএস রয়েছে, সেই এনএসএস এর প্রোগ্রাম অফিসার ডক্টর অনিমেষ মন্ডল মহাশয়কে রিকোয়েস্ট করব আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠান সম্পর্কে দু চার কথা বলার। ডক্টর অনিমেষ মন্ডল।
ধন্যবাদ ডক্টর পরিমল ঘোষ। ধন্যবাদ জানাই আমাদের কলেজের প্রিন্সিপাল স্যারকে। তিনি আমাদের সমস্ত প্রবলেম বা আমরা যে সকল কাজগুলো করতে চাই, বা যে সকল ঘটনাগুলো আমাদের কাছে আসে, বা যে সকল প্রপোজাল গুলো আমাদের কাছে আসে, সেগুলোকে যখনই আমরা ওনার কাছে অ্যাড্রেস করি, উনি সবসময় ওয়েলকাম করেন। হ্যাঁ, করো। আমাদেরকে প্রদীপ বাবু, ডিস্ট্রিক্ট কোঅর্ডিনেটর এনওয়াইকেএস, তাকে অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ জানাই। উনি 2 দিন আগে আমাকে ফোন করেন, বলেন যে এরকম একটা ইন্টারন্যাশনাল ইউথ ডে সেলিব্রেশন হতে যাচ্ছে, তো আপনারা আপনাদের কলেজ থেকে এটা করতে চান কিনা। তো আমি বলি যে আমি প্রিন্সিপাল স্যারের সঙ্গে আগে কথা বলে নিই, তারপর আপনাকে জানাচ্ছি। তো প্রিন্সিপাল স্যার এই সকল ব্যাপারগুলো আমাদেরকে এতটা লিবার্টি দেন, এবং উনি নিজেও এতটা পছন্দ করেন এইসব ব্যাপারগুলো, তার জন্য অসংখ্য প্রিন্সিপাল স্যারকে ধন্যবাদ। ডক্টর অমিতাভ বাসুকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই। প্রদীপ কুমার সাহা বাবুকে, যিনি এনওয়াইকেএস পশ্চিম বর্ধমানের কোঅর্ডিনেটর, তিনি আমাদের সঙ্গে বিগত বছরে অনেক প্রোগ্রাম করেছেন, যেমনটা উনি বলেছেন, প্রিন্সিপাল স্যার বলেছেন, এবং আমাদেরকে খুব শর্ট নোটিশের মধ্যে উনি জানান। আমরাও সেটা যতটা পারি তাড়াতাড়ি তুলে দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করি, এবং এনএসএস এবং এনওয়াইকেএস এর মধ্যে একটা গভীর সম্বন্ধ তৈরি করে ফেলেছি আমরা এর মধ্যে। এনএসএস যেমন কলেজ, বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় বা এডুকেশনাল প্রতিষ্ঠানের সঙ্গে কাজ করে, এনওয়াইকেএস সেরকম যেগুলো অসংগঠিত বা যেগুলো স্কুল কলেজের বাইরে যে সকল যুবরা আছেন তাদের সঙ্গে কাজ করে। দুটোই মিনিস্ট্রি অফ ইউথ অ্যাফেয়ার্স এবং স্পোর্টস এর আন্ডারে পড়ে। কাজ তাদের একই রকম, আসল মোটো আমাদের একই রকম, আমাদের অবজেক্টিভ একই, কিন্তু আমাদের দৃষ্টিভঙ্গিগুলো হয়তো একটু আলাদা, কিন্তু আমাদের ফাইনাল অবজেক্টিভ একদম একই। বেশি কথা বলবো না, বেশি কথা বলে সময় নষ্ট করবো না, আমরা এমনি পিছনে চলছে সময়। আমি ডক্টর অর্ণব গাঙ্গুলিকে বলবো এরপরে যিনি স্পিকার আছেন তাকে একটু ইন্ট্রোডিউস। ধন্যবাদ।
আমি সবাইকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি, and it gives me immense pleasure to introduce today to one of the most renowned and prominent speakers and one of the most important virologists and most famous virologists in the world today, Dr. Suman Ranjan Das. Dr. Das is an associate professor in the Division of Infectious Disease, Vanderbilt University in Nashville. And he's also the associate director for microbial genetics, Center for Translational Immunology and Infectious Disease. He's also an associate director for viral diseases, Vantage. He was a former associate director in the prestigious J. Craig Venter Institute in Rockville, Maryland. Dr. Das did his PhD in ICGB in New Delhi under the supervision of India's #1 virologist today, Dr. Shahid Jamil. And then he did his postdoc in Massachusetts and was a research associate in Atlanta. Apart from that, Dr. Das, or Suman, he's a very close friend of mine. And he was my classmate in Banaras Hindu University. And he was also my roommate in Jawaharlal Nehru University during our days there. I would like to welcome Dr. Das, and please enlighten us with your views on this topic. Dr. Das, please, are you there?
Oh, thank you, Dr. Ganguly. It's can you hear me?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yes, yes. I would like to thank the principal for giving this opportunity to speak about, and all the colleagues there. It's always we live overseas, but the heart is always back in India. I can tell that. So as Arno has given it's my 2 minutes of glory introduction. I have been working for viral infectious diseases for past 20 years. I started my career in the field of HIV. That was my PhD thesis with Dr. Jamil. As Dr. Ganguly has said, I'll call Arno because it's just look a little fake when I call him Dr. Ganguly, because we are so used to each other calling by first name. And for past 20 years, a little more than 20 years, or almost 20 years, I have been working on the viruses. It's HIV, then flu, and then I've been working RSV, and then a lot of emerging infectious diseases, including Ebola and other viruses. And one of the areas which I feel I have worked and gained knowledge is emerging infectious viruses. And I generally post I'll share first I thought I will give without slides, but that thought maybe it might be. So this is one of my class title. So this comes from an advertisement of 2005. The bird flu was coming. It was a funny article in Boston Phoenix talking about like we all are going to die. I like it because it gives a really a kind of open idea about how we are constantly being in the threat for viral infectious diseases. So whenever we think about a, kind of the current pandemic, it brings back the memory of the 1918, the great influenza or the Spanish influenza. I think that wiped out about 2 to 5% or more than that of human population. About, the numbers are sketchy, nobody knows and nobody was making counts, but between 20 to 100 million people died, depending on which mathematical calculation you look at. But that was not the one pandemic we know. There have been other pandemics who has lived longer and knows about. There was a pandemic in 1958. It was done by another flu virus. And then 68 again with Hong Kong flu. And some of us, or many of us, know about, survived and see the 2009 pandemic H1N1. This pandemics gave us a lot of experience on how to think about how to control measures, how to treat patients. But still, we realize, it's not enough. For example, a funny thing, in 1918, when the flu was infecting, people thought it's a bacteria because they didn't know the difference between a virus and a bacteria. That's why if you know this bacteria name, Haemophilus influenzae, and it was named because a lot of the people who are infected with the virus had co-infection of this bacteria. And because the bacteria was so often found in fatal cases, people thought this is the causal link. But until 1930s, we realized that it's not a bacteria, but something which can be filtered through a 0.2 micron, and that can infect. And that's how we know that is a virus, and then so on and so forth, long history of research. Apart from flu, which is one of the major research focus, things moved on to other viruses when we start getting like the polio virus in early 20s. And then later on, viruses like in 1980s, the HIV. So that expanded our research experience, but each virus come in with different symptoms and disease and all this. So the problem with, unlike bacteria, we know, we have antibiotics and others. The viruses are difficult to catch them and difficult to really understand how they come from and then how the disease would be. And to our surprise, that this new pandemic, which came, which I'm going to talk or discuss more in detail, is the COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2. We got scares for the SARS, and the first, many of us remember the SARS first outbreak, the SARS-1, and then there was a MERS happening. Didn't give a lot of global threat, but in 2010 to 14, around that time, with the MERS, which came from camels. But even though we think we are in the cutting edge of science, and even US and Europe, they think we have the medical, we've crossed, compared to many other countries, have cutting edge technology, there are 150, 60,000 people are dead. So if you look at today's date, and this is Hopkins tracking the global pandemic, we have 19, almost 20 million people are infected globally. And actually, I feel it's tip of the iceberg, because if you look at how many people are tested, it's much less, than what we should be doing. And I think, and the reason I will come to why, because a lot of people don't have symptoms. Well, unfortunately, US is leading the pack with more than just reached 50 million today. 5 million cases today, and 160,000 deaths in US alone. But India is catching up in that way. It's a race which nobody wants to win, right? So India is in a third position and one of the global hotspot of this ongoing pandemic. And with a population 1.4 billion, and then with limited space, and we Indians like to stay close together, and so because of that, the future for me until the vaccine comes in, even though we have multiple vaccine trial right now going on in my campus, and I'm involved with those, but we never have a history of making a vaccine within a year time. Most of the vaccine being made is anecdotal way, like the pox vaccine or the flu vaccine, which needed years and years of research and testing, and now we have a very short timeline to trying to catch this, but hopefully by end of the year, early next year, we would have a vaccine available for people to be given. Having a vaccine doesn't mean to giving a 7 billion people and globally is the issue. So that's something which we are still struggling. As I was saying, India is one of the global hotspot. If you look at here, of course, Russia is, but then the US is leading the pack, and then some of this Brazil and other countries are, really doing pretty badly. Even though, Italy and Europe, they started with a lot of cases and a lot of death, somehow they managed to control because of, the way they have socio-political implementations and the healthcare. Well, where the virus comes, and this is something which interests me because I have been working on these viruses. And if you look at the MERS came, the SARS, the original one came from bat, and this one also came bat. So somehow bats, flying mammals who have been, kind of separated from the other mammals for a long, long time, they harbor a lot of pathogen, even though those pathogens don't do any severity. For example, Ebola is coming from bat, Marburg is coming from bat, coronaviruses are coming from bat. We have some flu viruses coming from bat, but they don't, fortunately, they don't infect us yet. So this, whether it's MERS who came from bat through camel to human, or the other coronavirus, the old SARS came from bat through civet cats to human, I think we assume that this virus is coming through from bat too, but maybe a mediator of pangolins, which which been eaten in a lot in China, thinking they have medicinal value. If you look at mortality rates compared to MERS, it's 34%, very high. The mortality for SARS, the first SARS in 2004, which many of my generation will remember, it was about 9 to 10%, which is pretty high. I mean, if you think about, but the cases are low. But here the cases, this is old data. It's the March 27 data. There's only 500,000 people infected, and this data was showing 4.53. Now I think we hope it's less than that, about 2% of death. And there is something which is really interesting. So it's virus, the symptoms, it has like any flu or cold-like symptoms. Any cold-like symptoms you would have, like having fever, cough, shortness of breath. I mean, until, very difficult to find, like, we always get cold once or twice a year. And is it COVID-19 or is it something else we are getting through? One of the key difference though, and if you you have COVID-19, is that when you stop smelling or testing. That's funny. You can have no symptoms, but you lose this taste and smell. And that's when you should go and test yourself. I remember in mid-January, I had an infection, and I had, me and my wife both had infection, throat pain and fever. And we were really sure that, because I go to lab and all this, and my lab is processing a lot of sample, and also I get exposed to my colleagues who are directly treating patients. But the one thing I realized, and for one thing in my life, I was so happy to smell mangoes, because as long as I could, or fruits or anything, because as I knew, as long as I'm smelling and I could test food, I don't have COVID. So rule number one, if you think that you have COVID, uh, if symptoms, make sure that you have these symptoms. You have. I think that's a very unique symptoms to any respiratory viruses which we have seen in past. And even cases where there is no symptoms of respiratory distress or symptoms of any other kind, those asymptomatic people also have the smell and test are the two things which you should be worried about. One of the unique thing of this virus, unlike the SARS or the flu or any other viruses, that you see almost no cases or very little cases of childhood infections. So majority of them are asymptomatic or have no symptoms. They might have virus, but they are not showing no symptoms. And as you go up the age and you cross the age of 60 to 70, the increased hospitalization and death goes up over time. So these are old slides I'm showing, but if you look at today's data, and this is a data from Florida, where almost 527 cases have happened so far. And if you look at their 0 to 4 years, 0%. 5 to 14, death 0%, hospitalization 1%, in some cases. 15 to 24, and this is the age range, most of the kids who are going to college, you are the one, has very few hospitalization, some kind of symptoms. But as you go on, the number of cases, even though go down in the higher ages, but if you look at the death and the hospitalization goes up, it's kind of a reverse way. And this is unique to this virus, which we hadn't seen before. I mean, it was there, but this is something very different than what we have seen there. And this is a problem, and this is where I think the youth has to play a significant role, how to contain the virus, because most of the youth will not have symptoms, and I'll come to that. So if you look at there, generally, if there is 100% people infected, 80% have very mild, and 40% of people won't have any kind of symptoms, or 25 to 40%. 13 to 14% will have severe, and about 5% critical out of that, and then about 2% most likely are fatal cases. But there is a difference based on age, sex, and race. So we find that male are more risk to death versus female. And then we are finding that, for example, minorities like African Americans in US or Hispanic are dying more faster. Compared to, if we compare now, and I look at the data from India, looks like that's much less death rate compared to what you are seeing here. I mean, the hospitals are much better here, definitely. The healthcare is much better in US than India, but somehow there's something with race, and maybe there's something we call the, kind of thing which we are exposed to, like some of the bacteria we harbor called the microbiome, that may have some role. Like, for example, eating yogurt helps, or using turmeric, which is anti-inflammatory response, because most of the deaths are happening with the inflammation. So one of the questions is that why coronavirus is spreading so effectively? That's something haunted us. And in early days of pandemic, I got a lot of phone calls from the newspapers asking what will happen in the summer, and I'll come back to that. So if you look at there, take 5 young kid, people with less than 24 years old, about 25 to 40% of them won't have any symptoms at all. So that's really surprising. But if you look at, and even though you don't have symptoms, you're potentially transmitting the virus without knowing it. But if you compare one of the most lethal diseases like Ebola, and I'll just make a contrast with how the Ebola and coronaviruses have kind of contrasting effect. If you look at the Ebola, and you look at early period, so the incubation period is like here in coronaviruses between 5 to 14 days. It can go up to 42 days in maximum. You are incubated and then you show symptoms. Here it's about 2 to 21 days and mostly no symptoms. And the chance of transmission of the virus is almost zero. Early stage, you start showing symptoms. You have fever, fatigue, headache, sore throat, and very low. Even in mid symptoms with diarrhea, vomiting, and hiccups and all this, you are already, it's still moderate. Unlike other case, in coronaviruses, even if you don't have symptoms, you are still transmitting. So this is what it is like, is the reason why the people, before they show any symptoms, they start transmitting to people. So that means the young generation who are most likely not see a very severe cases, but they are the main they could be the main driver in protecting the population because of multiple reasons. One, that the young people, you won't show symptoms. So if you are careful and not transmit that to your parents or among your friends or to others, then the transmission block will happen. Because when somebody shows symptoms, of course, they will be more careful. But most of you won't have symptoms. And that will be a critical phase that to protect in a transmission or break the transmission chains, if asymptomatic people stop the transmission by taking precaution, by wearing mask or not going to public places more often or touching your face or washing your hands and being careful, because at the end, remember that you might not show symptoms. You go home, you give to your parents, they will get symptoms, and that can be worse. At the end, one day, and lot of stories come out, like people who traveled and didn't care about the coronavirus in early days. They went and met their parents. Their parents are old, and they gave the virus. Parents and grandparents, they gave virus and they died. And they now ask themselves, is that I brought the death sentence to my parents? This is what is there, that the young generation, which is the most strong and most likely to not show any symptoms, could be the carrier, and you need to protect that. You need to make that happen so that you protect your family, your friends' family, and yourself too. Second, many of you will get the coronavirus, and most likely the vaccine won't be ready until mid-January or maybe March. In my mind, it's by the time you get a vaccine shot in your arm, it's like March or April next year, even if everything goes smooth. If that's the case, and the virus numbers would really peak a lot in October, November, December, January, February in India, maybe 200,000 a case a day, or maybe 500,000 a day case, means a lot of young people will get infected. May not be severity. I'm not saying they will get severe. But the young generation, if you realize you have COVID or you are tested positive, confine yourself, protect your family, protect others, but also you should be ready, because one of the therapy which is really working well for COVID until the vaccine comes is plasma therapy. You can donate your blood and your plasma will have antibodies that will protect a lot of people, your families and outsider, and everybody. If you guys do that, your generation, I think you are going to be the main pillar of that. And you have to remember, India is a young country. We have a lot more young people than old. So the protection would come from the young people. If any step we can protect the country from going downhill is the young people. So another thing which surprisingly interesting for us as a virologist and a people who are treating COVID patient is that there are a lot of comorbidity that linked with that. For example, cardiovascular disease, and which is an epidemic in India right now. A lot of cardiovascular diseases, diabetes. We love sweets, and a lot of us, family members have diabetes, type 2 diabetes. and cardiovascular disease. And of course, chronic respiratory disease, it could be genetic, it could be pollution, hypertension like blood pressure, and cancer. And so with all this, if you look at here, highest is the cardiovascular disease, then diabetes, and of course, if you have multiple of them like diabetes and cardiovascular disease, you are really high risk factor, irrespective of age of yours or sex. Because as I tell, female are less likely to have severe disease versus male. And then older people will have more severe cases. So what I talked about, that the top 3 or 4 killers, if you have comorbidity, means you already have some existing conditions like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, chronic respiratory infection, disease like asthma, and all these are hypertension. What I was want to talk about is that other comorbidity associated with HIV is these 2, and cardiovascular disease and hypertension. So if you look at people now with the antiviral, they're living for a longer time. And because of that, uh, many of them, because of HIV and sustained immunotherapy, and the antiviral use and, immunologic, loss of immunity, they also have secondary morbid comorbidity like cardiovascular disease. A lot more HIV people have cardiovascular disease than normal people. Lot more HIV people have hypertension than normal people. So people who are living with HIV, they are in further risk because many of them has cardiovascular disease or hypertension, and these are linked to high severe cases in COVID cases. So overall, what I'm trying to brought to you, I mean, many of this information you can find in internet, which is really good, and sometimes it's confusing. Sometimes you see, oh, vaccine will be ready in August 15th, which is not true. So you have to be, the other area you need to be careful and really use your logic to disseminate information. You are the younger generation who are educated, and there are a lot of uneducated people. They will ask you question, what is happening, and a lot of WhatsApp forwarding and all this of fake news. Fake news becoming a part of our life, whether it's through the news channels or through social media. The strength of social media, that we are connected, we can learn a lot. The problem is there are a lot of information which is not right, and you need to use your head and think that can it be possible to get a vaccine by August 15th, or drink this or that, like our US president talking about drinking bleach and injecting bleach and all this. These are nonsense, and we need to understand, and we need to really rationalize, and being as educated people, you need to use our logic, that is it possible? Are we just bombarded with fake news or the real news, and how we tease out fake news versus the right news? And a lot of time you can find from sites like CDC, WHO, where you get the right information. If somebody can come and tell you, oh, vaccine will be ready by October or something like that, or you drink this potion and it will make you cure coronavirus, just be careful and think about it before you start taking that. I don't know how much time I have taken. Arnav? Hello?
Yeah, Suman, yeah, you can continue.
Okay, so I prepared, as you said, for okay, so I can talk about a couple of things what we are doing. So about cardiovascular disease, sorry, HIV and COVID-19, to be frank, that not much research has been already established. We have multiple clinical studies, epidemiological study ongoing, where we want to assess that how the HIV is affecting, pre-existing HIV is affecting coronavirus infection or others. But based on the comorbidity, it looks like it could be much more severe because of immune deficiency too. Even if they get the vaccine, then because of, even the drugs, the antivirals have really increased the T cell, counts in HIV people, people living with HIV, but still their immune system is not like the one with, any healthy people. So based on our anecdotal evidence, I would say, or evidence based on logic, it looks like people with HIV would have a lot more, severe cases. And we have multiple ongoing studies going on among the African American community, which is a higher burden of HIV in US. The Hispanic community, they also have higher burden of HIV, mostly due to drug abuse and also sexual transmission, but both drug abuse. And also we want to compare and identify if there is a race basis on, because what so far we are finding that, as I had already mentioned, African American and the Hispanic community have much worse outcome with COVID-19. Well, coming back to what my lab has been doing, and I'll talk one area is that, and this slide is what we are doing is looking at antibody response to coronavirus and to really want to see the seroconversion, what is happening. The other part of the work which we are doing is looking at is the role of microbiome, and I'll tell more detail what's microbiome on this disease severity in the older people. So what we can get by so we have developed multiple serological tests methods to do high throughput screening for serological positive. So we, within days, and I think we have seen that between day 4 to 5, we start getting the IgM. This is one kind of antibody, and then IgG, that's a class switching happens. IgMs are more like pentameric, and IgG are like in a monomeric form. We can see those that, whether the people are infected, and if they are infected, they are showing some clinical symptoms and have antibody response. The seroconvergence would also help us when we vaccinate people. We will find who are showing immune response, and then how long this immune protection happens. So once you are infected, are you going to reinfect it? Most likely yes, based on the evidence what we are finding within 3 months of infection. A lot of people are waning. Waning means losing the antibody titer over time, which is a normal course, but not that dramatic what we see in flu or other vaccine cases or infection cases. The other thing which we want to track, that how many people are seropositive or negative, so that we know that what is seroprevalence, means how many people potentially are infected, have infected already, because a lot of people might not show clinical symptoms. So can we, based on the antibody, we confirm that they are infected or not? Why we want to know, how many people are infected, and based on making a small sample of testing, we can expand it to say, okay, how many percentage of people are there? So based on the infectious disease, what we have learned that when there is a 70 to 80% of people have antibody response to any virus, and most of the studies are flu and others, then there is something called herd immunity, means immunity among the community, that will break the transmission chains. So remember, I was telling that a lot of the newspaper were reaching out to me in early pandemic in February, March, that what will happen in summer. And you can go and see my links, and my answer is that we don't know first. And if we know in this coronavirus, where we don't have any immune response, immune antibody response, most likely in summer we'll still have a transmission. And that's exactly happened. The reason is that we don't have herd immunity, means that we have so many people who are not have antibodies, or protective antibodies to get protected from this virus. That's why the transmission is going on. The transmission chain is continuing from one person to the other person to the other person. But if these dots, what I'm showing, so it's scattered, if we cover 80% of that, either through infection or vaccination, I hope through vaccination, then we can have a herd immunity. So let's say I get infected now, but my family members already have serum antibody level. They are protected based on that. So I'm not going to transmit that. So the virus, when I get sick, I'll stay home. My family member will not get infected. And because I'm staying home, I'm not giving to anybody. So the transmission chain will break. And that means that we have a kind of a herd immunity and protection from there. So that's why we want to see what is the seroprevalence and how we know it. And then if we know it, that will help us that what will be the disease burden in the longer run. That's one. The second, so that's one of the major reasons why we are doing that. So that's one of the area my lab is working, and I'm working on there. The other hypothesis we have is that we as a human being or animal or others, we have human cells, but also have a lot of bacteria we did not know before. Actually, we have more number of bacteria in our body than number of our cells. Bacteria are small, so they don't need a lot big biomass, but we have ton of bacteria in our body that maintain our homeostasis. It's a kind of a commensal relationship. And some of my work has shown that, for example, if you have lactobacillus and you get lactobacillus from yogurt, and in India, we eat a lot of yogurt, and I think that protects us from infection. So lactobacillus protect from respiratory virus infections, for example, RSV, and also kind of flu and rhinoviruses. So that's one of the things. So that's kind of protective side of microbiome, then a severity side of microbiome. So we have seen that if you have viral infection, and a lot of time when you go to a doctor, they give you antibiotic. Antibiotic won't protect you from viral infection, that's for sure. But what happens when you have viral infection, you have secondary bacterial infection. So you already have bacteria. When your immune system goes down, the bacteria come up and they start infecting. And that's when you get more sick, more fever and all this. In 1918, when there's a flu pandemic happened, it's not because of the flu virus people died, but a lot more because of the secondary bacterial infection like Haemophilus or Streptococcus or Staph aureus. So these are the bacteria which we have in respiratory tract, and they can be, in presence of a viral infection, they can be deadly to us. So one of the hypotheses we have that the old people might have a different kind of microbiome. Of course, they have a weakened immune system, different kind of microbiome, and because of that, they have more severity. So we are testing, looking at these bacteria, and there might be some protective bacteria in young people, maybe lactobacillus, because young people drink milk, or some other things which are protecting them, and vice versa. So one of the things, apart from understanding host genetics, and other thing, we want to look at, does the bacteria have any role? And if that is true, then can we use the bacteria or the bacterial product as a protection from this disease severity? Because most of the severity happens because of uncontrolled immune response to the viral infection. So I think I will end here, and I'll take some questions if you guys have. Hello?
Yeah, Suman,
Yes.
are you there?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's a great, lovely talk, Suman. After so many days, I'm looking at you directly.
Thank you.
Okay, and there are some questions from the students, and one of the questions is that will ever there be a vaccine for COVID-19, considering that there are no vaccines for the common cold?
Yes, so I think, so we have a vaccine for common cold like flu, And it's not that we don't have a vaccine. We have vaccine, but it only works between 50 to 70% of time. So there is barely, except pox vaccine, none of the vaccine works 100% of time. You have vaccine doesn't mean you're protected. So to answer the question that will there be a vaccine? Yes, we will have vaccine, and most likely by end of this year or early next year. And some of the reason I'm saying that so strongly because some of this data we have seen in phase 2 and phase 1 and phase 2 trial, and phase 3 clinical trial is ongoing. Even my department have 2 clinical trial. One is the Moderna vaccine trial and one is the Sanofi vaccine trial going on, where we have enrolling 500 people. Actually, one of my so based on the evidence what we are seeing, there will be a vaccine. Will that protect for you forever? No, I don't think so, because it's an RNA virus like flu. It makes a lot of mutation, and the mutation which makes it's the devil is in the detail, but the mutation that flu virus makes is different kind. It's kind of a reassortment because it's a segmented genome, and also it make mutation in its gene because of the RNA polymerase proofreading. Coronavirus does, it's a large, long virus, like 30 kb, one of the biggest virus you can think of. It's 30 kb genome size. So it does a lot of recombination between strains, but also it makes something called defective interfering particles by homologous recombination. And it also makes a lot of other kind of proofreading kind of mistakes. Even though this is the only virus which has some kind of RNA virus with some kind of proofreading, because most of the viruses don't have proofreading. What I'm trying to say is that I think once we have vaccine and herd immunity, we'll start seeing more and more virus evolution, and over time we might find that the vaccine we have might not work, and we have to modify the vaccine. But to answer your first question, yes, we'll have a vaccine. And will it be for long term? I don't know. I would seriously doubt that. Most like flu, but maybe less than flu, we'll have this vaccine, maybe once every year or once in 2 to 3 years, depending on how the rate of the virus, mutates. Any other question?
Yeah, Suman, our librarian has a good question. It is that he also has praised your talk, and he has asked that the pandemics in history have a curious nature of appearing suddenly and then disappearing suddenly. And so in this context, he's asking, when can we get rid of this COVID-19?
Oh, no, that's a great question, but $1 million, maybe $1 billion question right now. The havoc it's making. Yes, the pandemic. They say it disappear. In my mind, they don't. In the pandemic, even 2009 pandemic, we had the swine flu. It didn't go away. It become not lethal anymore. So there's some kind of a concept called the host pathogen interaction. So for a virus doesn't want to kill its host. You know why? Because it kills the host, it dies with it. So for example, virus like HIV, it's one of the successful virus because it stays forever until you leave, and make sure that it kills in some of the cases, but it's not kills everybody, and takes enough time so that it jumps to other person before it dies. So what I feel like that whenever you have a new species jump, we call something called a term biology. It doesn't matter what it's called. It's called zoonosis. Means when a virus jumps from one species to other. So now it's like you go to a new town. So you live in Asansol. You really barely go for a walk around the city and look at this. But when you go to Calcutta and the first time, the first thing is you are curious and want to see it. I'm just giving you an example. So what I'm trying to say is that when there is a new virus coming, and then the host is not adapted to the new virus, and that's the kind of a disagreement. But once that is settled down, now for a evolutionary point of view, For virus, it's better to let the host survive longer and not give a lot of disease so that it's not get eliminated. That doesn't make sense. I don't know. I mean, so this is what it is, like in the host pathogen interaction, the instability which makes this disease severity, then it slowly goes down. None of the viruses, we still have MERS. The reason we contained it because it shows symptoms before it transmits, so we can contain that. SARS, we contained that because it's not that the virus disappeared. We contained it because we know who are infected and we can isolate them and treat them. For flu, it never go away. We have all this H1N1 still circulating. S3N2 is still circulating since 1968. So yes, some of them goes away, but not always, all of them.
Suman, there's one question from a professor in physics in our college, Professor Kajal Krishna De. He asks, how long after death does the virus remain active?
Well, Sarah, that's a question which was scary in some time, because there was a case where in a mortuary there was some potential transmission, and which was later on confirmed that that was not the case. So, but it also depends on the viruses. So I'll tell. There is time, right? Or I'm taking over my time, or no?
Oh, yeah, you can answer the question. There's just one more question after that.
Okay. So if you look at Ebola, a lot of people, the Ebola spreads through the death ceremonies, because Ebola virus survives for a longer time in dead people, and one virus is more than enough to infect somebody else. And when a person dies with Ebola, they die because of dehydration and loose motion and urination. Like they completely, as if the water is sucked out from your body, and each microliter of water is enough to infect a person or more than a person. So in case of Ebola, the virus stays pretty good amount of time, maybe a couple of days. And when this kind of, when they have death ceremonies where they get to dig the body and all this, I think maybe we Indians learn burning, dead bodies, and also taking bath as soon as you come back from there is maybe one of the way of protecting from this kind of infectious disease. But that, so coming back to the corona, we really don't know. I mean, we have tested samples which after death, and they found to be negative from a patient, couple of 4 or 5 cancer patients, who early cancer patient after 48 hours of the death. And we didn't do a systemic study, so every 2 hours it takes sample and test the time course. But I assume the virus doesn't stay much longer than 24 hours in the body after the death. But this is anecdotal evidence. It's not scientifically done to say, okay, you do a kinetics to learn about that.
Suman, last question from me, and that is from you. You're the best person to answer this. It is that which virus do you consider to be more dangerous, COVID-19 or HIV?
That's a difficult question. I feel HIV, as I was talking about, we have some success in HIV. So if you talk about two things, if you look at the death by HIV, it's much more magnitude than what we have so far seen in COVID-19, and you would agree with that. But one of the things which is that since 1982-83 and today's date, we have gone a long war with this virus, HIV, and have some success. For example, the antiretroviral therapy are working. We have some evidence of vaccine coming closer to that. but we still don't have a solid vaccine. But what I feel that for coronaviruses, we will have a vaccine, even though it looks like such a havoc and such a, so many people are dying, but in a shorter period of time. That's why we are seeing so many cases. But if you look at HIV, we have hundreds of thousands of people died in India in early 2000s, and I remember when I was working every year. So I feel HIV has because it's much more evolved virus, as I was saying, because it can stick with you and it's very difficult to take it out from your body compared to coronavirus is more dangerous. But now, because we have learned, we can live with it. So I really don't know. I mean, which way to balance, because they, in my mind, they're not apple to apple. It's more like apple to a pineapple or something like that. So both, I wish nobody gets both either. But if you get corona and if you are young, maybe it's not a bad thing. But if you, any age group, and if you have HIV, you can be in trouble, and you have to, you're not the same person anymore in that sense. So
There's just one last question from our zoology professor, Kaushik
Sure.
Kumar Mandu. Says, are asymptomatic patients less contagious than the
relatively less contagious. I mean, we don't, as I said, everything we are, so if you compare my colleagues who are treating, and my division is the ID division, and my colleagues are treating COVID patient over the year, in early time, anybody who got a ventilator, there's a 90% chance that person is going to die. We used to have every night calls, and I was part of those, where seeing like we have 18 cases, 18 with, so we lose patient, we were losing patient, and we didn't know what to do. The doctors didn't know, the scientists didn't have an answer. We have learned a lot over the 7-8 months, and the death rates are much less than what used to be once with the severe case. So coming back to your question is that, so sorry, what was the question?
The question was, are asymptomatic patients less contagious than symptomatic ones?
We don't, that there is not a strong study that, it's not been properly done. So there is a correlation of viral titer and disease severity. So people who have more viral titer have more disease severity, more symptomatic. So, and we also know that more viral titer means you transmit more, you sneeze more, you make more aerosol, you make more that. So that doesn't mean there's zero chance. The other problem, I'm not directly answering the question, is that all the method right now, and we have developed a method which I don't want to boast about, but all the method right now by qPCR or other methods, what we realize that we have developed a new method which is expensive right now, but we are finding cases where people show no symptoms and have the virus present, which is not recognized by standard qPCR or diagnostic panel. So what I'm trying to say is that there might be much more people who have COVID than even our panels can find. And even where panels are finding, they're asymptomatic. So the balance is that the number of cases we see, I will say yes, asymptomatic, to direct answer, asymptomatic should have a less transmission, but not zero transmission.
Okay, Sumant, so there are more questions, but because of shortage of time and possibly it is now nearing 2 p.m. 2 a.m. in the morning in your place, I would rather stop the session. I would request all the participants to send their questions to me. I will convey these questions to Suman, and then I will take his replies and give it back to you.
Sure, I'd love to do that.
And I would like to really thank Dr. Suman Ranjan Das to for giving this talk in such a short notice. It was just 2 days back. I just called him and said, Suman, please, there for Nehru Yuva Kendra, please, there is one talk. You have to give this. You cannot say no. And he graciously accepted it and really honored us with his talk. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Suman. And it really, I mean, it feels strange to call you like that because we call each other with different names.
That's
And
right.
I think in the future, I will really call you once more when the Department of Zoology, in which I'm the head right now, I will invite you once to give a talk once more for this seminar.
I just wanted to let you know that I was an NSS member when I was in college.
Right.
And I had certificate for like 3 years in a row. I used to serve during Rath Yatra to, a lot of people used to faint because of loss of water and dehydration. We used to pick them up and, treat them as part of the NSS. And when you said, it's kind of a part of that, and, and that really enthused me to not sleep till 2 in the morning and just be part of that and, get involved. And I would like to thank you and the, principal sir and everybody else for giving this opportunity, and hope I was able to convey some new information more
Absolutely.
than
We
what
are
is
really
there.
honored. We are really honored in this aspects.
Thank
And
you.
after thanking Dr. Suman Ranjan Das, I would like to thank the principal of BB College, Dr. Amitabo Basu. I would also like to thank the president, district president, Mr. Novin Nayak, and state president Novin Nayak, and district convener, Mr. Pradeep Shaha, and then our NSS unit head, Dr. Animesh Mondol, and Dr. Barsar, and GB member and professor in physics, Dr. Porimal Ghosh, and all the members who have contributed to NSS, including students and your participants, and the participants who have come in large numbers for this occasion. We would now take a 2 minutes break, after which we will start the competition and debate, which will start. So we have a 2 minutes break right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Good afternoon. Am I audible? Kindly confirm.
Yes, you are perfectly.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. As we are aware, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted our physical, psychological, and financial well-being, compelling all of us to come to terms with the new normal. It is important that we keep ourselves motivated during these trying times. With this intention, the Nehru Yuva Kendra, Paschim Bardhaman, and the NSS unit of Banwarilal Bhalotia College, Asansol, in association with the West Bengal State AIDS Prevention and Control Society, have organized a one-day international webinar and district-level elocution competition to celebrate in advance the International Youth Calls for the A warm welcome extended once again. Hello?
Please continue.
Okay, continue.
Okay, yeah. A warm welcome extended once again to our principal, sir, honorable dignitaries, teachers, participants, students, and all others to today's program. The topic for the elocution competition is the challenges faced by the youth during COVID-19 pandemic situation and how they are addressing the same. Each participant will be given 3 minutes to speak on the subject. The decision of the judges shall be final. All participants will get a participation certificate. They will also receive an educational kit when the pandemic situation normalizes. The winners of today's competition, the first, second, and third rank holders will receive their certificates with prizes, which shall be given when the present pandemic situation normalizes. The first rank holder will go directly to the state level competition, which will be held on the 12th of August 2020 in an online mode. Today's competition will be judged by Dr. Shudipto Dash, Assistant Professor of the Department of Mathematics, member of the IQAC Committee, and Teachers Council Secretary, BB College, Asansol. Dr. Animesh Mondol, Assistant Professor of the Department of Botany, member of the IQAC Committee, and the Program Officer, NSS Unit of BB College, Asansol. And Mr. Uddalok Datto, Assistant Professor of the Department of English, member of the IQAC Committee, BB College, Asansol. I think now we should begin today's competition. Should we call in the first speaker?
Yes, please proceed.
Yeah. The first speaker for the day is Qazi Niamatul Ain from the Department of English, BB College, Asansol. Yes.
I'm audible.
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Good afternoon to one and all attending this webinar. 12th of August is considered as the International Youth Day. And keeping that in mind, today we have gathered here to discuss about the challenges the youth is facing right now due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, before I start with my speech, I want to share my current experience. This is the first time I am participating in a competition in a virtual mode. No one is there in front of me, just a mobile phone. Now, this is the challenge, how we accept the changes that have occurred in our lives due to this pandemic and how we take it in a positive manner. COVID-19 poses a serious threat in all our lives. So many people are dead all over the world, and so many are still fighting to live. But the youth have problems of their own, be it online classes, pending exams, or not being able to meet our friends for such a long time. These might seem trivial, but it has a negative impact on the mental health of the students and the youth at a large extent. But we can say that the thing which youth must remember is that if negativity is there, positivity also exists. And at the moment, we are safe and still living is the greatest blessing. many people could not see the broad daylight today. The youth is having a mental trauma due to this negative influence which is going all over the world. But one thing we must understand, the challenge which all of us are facing right now is take it in a positive way and win over it. One thing which the lockdown is claiming right now is an introspection to look into ourselves. The thing which I learned during this time is that if I keep on spreading positivity and happiness, then at the end of the day, I myself will be happy. But if I choose to spread negative vibes, then at the end of the day, I myself will be depressed and I cannot escape it. So it is more like a boomerang. What I throw, I'll get it back. So this is the time not to think about what you will be and how much money you will earn during the next few years, but how you grow yourself as a human being. Because what majority of the youth does today, that will depend the future of the nation. So it is very important to understand what to do during this time, because once everything is normal and we are back in our normal lives, this time will have a great impact on us and will decide how we grow ourselves as human beings, and how the most important challenge which the youth is facing among all these negative influences, how to get over it and be a positive influence maker. Because people can help us in many ways, but to support mentally is one of the greatest thing we can do now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Niyamatul. So please proceed for the next participant.
Next speaker is Daisy Shengupto. Daisy, are you there? Kindly
Yes, she is
unmute
there.
yourself. Yes, you have 3 minutes to go.
Yes, am I audible? Hello.
Yes. Continue. Okay,
Okay.
start.
A very good afternoon to one and all present here. I would like to speak on the topic how COVID-19 has affected the youth today. COVID-19 in India, nation at halt. A pandemic always comes unannounced, but India was certainly not ready for such an immediate halt in its day-to-day functions. Offices shut, daily wage earners out of opportunities to meet ends, and the millions of students' education disrupted. With schools, colleges, and coaching institutes ceasing physical classes, the government was quick to suggest shifting to online or virtual classes, completely disregarding that approximately 67% of the Indian student population come from the rural. The government failed to take into consideration that there is a prevalent digital divide, there will be problems in accessing to the virtual classes, and now they're even proposing online exams. Colleges are showing no concession in the matters of payment of fees. They are taking no consideration to the problem that the majority of the students will have to face. Not failing once again to remind us that the well-to-do will always have a better chance to grasp opportunities. Not only students, even teachers are having problems during online classes. I read a case which says that a 55-year-old teacher gets bullied because the class has nothing in his power to do but disconnect the call. The University Grants Commission (UGC) stands firm on its say of conducting the exams to protect the academic future, despite knowing that many colleges have not been able to conduct online classes. Amongst all this chaos, what is being overlooked is the mental health of the students. The constant conflict between the UGC and the universities has put the students at crossroads where they do not know whether to hold their calm and hope or fall back helplessly. Students are having to go through quite a conundrum. Even different entrance exam aspirants are in a predicament. They are right now at the mercy of the of the Supreme Court's final verdict. Now we all can agree that a man is a social animal. It will always yearn for a social contact, for a physical human presence. So students who are stuck in the hostel, they are without friends or families, and we all can agree on how depressing that is. Students who are back home are undoubtedly happy, but they're also having a little bit of trouble to readjust to the new normal. A positive side of this is that people are getting chance to reconnect with themselves, reconnect with their families, and take time to reconfirm their decisions, to think about it. They are developing new hidden talents every day in the matters of culinary or arts. In conclusion, I would like to say that we cannot let this dilemma of pandemic tower over us or over our hopes for the good days to come. Let us thank and appreciate the efforts that the teachers are going through or putting for our unceasing education. In bleak and dire times like this, we must try to look at the glass as half full as well. After all, life is all about the cons in the spotlight, but also acknowledging and rejoicing the pros in the background. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Daisy. So please proceed for the next person.
The next participant is Debolina Shadhu.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Debolina,
Yes, ma'am.
you have 3 minutes to speak.
Able to? Okay. Here, I am Deblina Sadhu of English Department of BB College. I've got the golden opportunity to speak about the topic like youth facing the challenges during COVID-19 pandemic situation. So some of the points which I want to discuss, like educational fallout, virus pandemic, and this ensuing lockdown temporarily created an enormous gap within the educational bodies. Despite the government and central trying their best to support the e-learning classes and also the online education, then many schools and colleges was based on offline classes, but now they have to opt for online classes, and many unprivileged section of the society is unable to attach themselves because they don't have desktop, laptop, mobile phones, etc. Now the laboratory works, which is a practical form of study, now has been totally stopped because they are lacking clarity on those particular subjects. Then the continuous change in the dates of the entrance exams has been due to this pandemic situation, has been caused to the anxiety and stress to the students. Now there's a loss of jobs of so many youngsters and has worsened their family condition. Then this has led to the excessive consumption of drugs, and then this has led to the excessive consumption of drugs, and as also statistics shows us that the suicide cases among the youths has been increasing day by day. And then children's amusement park has been totally shut down, where children cannot go and enjoy themselves. And in this way, students are living a monotonous life where frustration is increasing day by day. And then students who have the passion to students who have the passion to photography, or the or exploring students who have the passion to photography or exploring new places, they are the students who have the passion of exploring new places, they cannot go, as the movement of people from one place to another has totally been restricted by the government. So I would like to suggest all the youth to be cool and calm, as the government has announced that vaccine will be released as soon as possible and we'll be back to our normal life. And in this way, I would like to conclude my education session. Thank you.
Okay, Debolina, thank you. Please proceed
Right.
to the next speaker.
Shall we move on to the next speaker?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Yes. The next speaker is Afri Naz. Afri, kindly unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Afri Naz from 4th semester English department. Before starting my speech, I would like to thank each and every member for organizing such a fruitful webinar on the COVID-19. So the COVID-19 global health emergency and its economic and social impacts have disturbed nearly all the aspects of life for all the groups and ages of society in an unprecedented manner. People of different ages, however, are experiencing its effects in various ways. Youth in India constitutes about more than one-fourth of the total population. As of March 28, 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic is causing more than 1.6 billion children and youths to be out of school in 161 countries. This is close to 80% of the world's enrolled students. Especially for the vulnerable youth, the COVID-19 poses considerable risk in the field of education, employment, mental health, and disposable income. A lot can be solved through the online technologies, which may be affordable only to the richer communities, but not to the poorer ones. As per data, only 8% of the homes with the young member have computer with the internet facilities. Many children do not have a desk, books, internet connectivity, a laptop at home, or supportive parents. Moreover, teaching students online does not completely fulfill the criteria and the doubts of offline school and the college classes. So, coming to the unemployment zone, many youth who are engaged in private training farms or other small business are uprooted from their areas of earning. Suitable employment is very hard to find these days. According to data of CMIE, 27 million youths on the age of 20 to 30 lost their jobs in April 2020. Hence, losing a job is a broad problem in India as well as in other several countries too. Next point of challenge is mental stability and the health issue, which has increased a lot in this pandemic lockdown. The lack of physical activity, school closure, excessive use of social media have affected very much the mental health of youths. According to a survey in UK, 78% of the youths have faced serious mental disturbance due to the lack of public spaces. So these are the very serious challenges which cannot be overlooked. Well, above all, I can only conclude my speech by saying, when there's darkness, there's light too. Our governments are taking out necessary schemes and steps to combat the challenges faced by the people, especially youths, to bring a peaceful and satisfactory stability in various fields of the ongoing war. So let's join hands and fight the pandemic in a safe and healthy way. Thank you all.
Thank you, Afri. So please proceed to the next speaker.
The next speaker is Sanjukta Mondol. Sanjukta, are you there? Yes. You have 3 minutes to speak. Yeah.
Okay. A warm welcome to all of you. Today I am expressing my view over the challenges facing by youth during COVID-19 pandemic situation. Hope everyone is doing well and staying safe in this worldwide spreading pandemic situation. In any crisis situation, be it war, natural disaster, or pandemic, youth, especially those who belong to socio-economic, economically background and marginalized communities, end up becoming the most vulnerable demographic. The pandemic is the second global shock in less than 2 decades to hit young people. As a result, they worry about the impact on their mental health, job, income. In some cases, by mitigation measures that may inadvertently do more harm than good. It is a universal crisis and for some youth, the impact will be lifelong. The damage will be by following factors. Vulnerable young people will need the most urgent support during and after pandemic. Mainly youth could fall into extreme poverty as a result of economic crisis this year. We have to concern about how closure of school and educational institution in wake of COVID-19 breakout could impact in the life of youth. The potential losses that may occur in the learning for today's young generation and for the development of their human capitals are hard to fathom. More than two-thirds of countries have introduced distance learning platform, but among the lower economic countries, only share is 30%. So remote learning is very challenging. There is for migrant children who have a lack of information and a lack of experience in lockdown. Youth likely to face greater challenges in accessing information from education institutes. Institutes. Youth friendly sectors like retails and hospitality are greatly affected. The risks of drop out among those who disencourage during distance learning has increased day by day. Due to not getting proper online learning infrastructure, disruption occur in jobs training. Unemployment increasing day by day. Before the crisis, almost one-third of the world's young people were already digitally excused. Vulnerable young people need need most urgent support during this pandemic situation. Even though lockdown restriction is increasingly eased, the same can't be said for the pressure facing youth mental health. Disruption is access to medical and dental service declining, spreading for children. The economic shocks like joblessness, income decreases is likely to have a negative impact on young adults' health.
Shantu, your time is over.
Thank you.
So shall we call in the next speaker?
Please.
Yeah, I think the next speaker is Priyanka Shaw. Okay. Priyanka? Yes. Priyanka, unmute yourself, please.
Hello,
yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Greetings, everyone. Okay. This is Priyanka Shaw, and I'm really glad today to be a part of this International Youth Day celebration. Today, I'm here to discuss about the challenges being faced by the youth in this COVID-19 pandemic. Same issues, but with a vast effect on us due to this harsh pandemic situation. I can recall a name of the German novelist because it has the ability to see the beauty in everything never grows old. But now youth has broke down due to the little support. Obviously, a country can't stand well with a strong backbone. So the major issues faced by the youth right now is the economic instability and immense mental pressure. Then there comes the several factors contributing to it generally. See, the unemployment has always been a major issue in India since a really long time. But now even the sole earning members of the family are bound to sit idle. The families are in deep drastic situation. In such a case, even bearing the basic expenses of education for youth has become a severe problem in some families, especially the poor families. It is considered to be the bigger and worst economic crisis than that of the See, the lockdown has made us all trauma and deep mental instability. Youths are, and we are just facing it through all within the hard times. Basically, we have no idea how we will go out of it, but we are standing still. But I feel that we cannot silence. Recent data released by the National Legal Service Authority says that nationwide lockdown has increased the rapid cases of domestic violence. And on the other hand, obesity and improper diet, lack of sleep has a really supportive role to the depression and anxiety. The Cellular Corporation in India has released a report which says that the data consumption in India has surged by 30% during this pandemic situation. I know it is both important has immensely grown through online classes and assignments and exams and projects. Being attached to the social media and mobile phone all day is really adverse for our health. But as it has become an integrated part of our life, we can't do anything about it. There is a long list about those challenges being faced, but due to short duration of time, I would like to rest my speech here. Hope is a good thing. Let's we all hope to get out of this pandemic together strongly. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka. Please proceed to the next speaker.
Next participant is Meghna Lal. Meghna Lal? Meghna? Yes.
Am I audible, ma'am? Yes.
Yes, yes, you are clearly audible.
The COVID-19 pandemic took the world by surprise. The world seems to have ground to a halt because of the novel coronavirus. This situation has led the youth to face various challenges in different sectors, and education, the most important sector, has affected the youth. One of the very famous quotes by Albert Einstein says, "Education is what remains after one has forgotten what one had learnt in school." Saying education is important is an understatement. In the wake of this situation, many schools around the mode of education so they can provide the necessary education to their students. India is no exception. Institutes in India are providing education while ensuring the recommendations of UNESCO, such as choosing most relevant tools, ensuring distance learning programs so that students with low income families or differently able students may get fair chance by implementing measures, providing training to teachers and students so that they can grasp online learning, etc. are met. These are really commendable steps and are bridging the gaps between teachers and students in the wake of such global crisis. After all these efforts, students are still facing different challenges to cope up with the online mode of education. The first and the foremost problem is faced by students who are in less fortunate situations and either have no access to a device or to an internet connection. Due to this, these students are in a very difficult position and are unable to continue their education until this COVID-19 pandemic situation ends. This is affecting the youth in a psychological way too. Second, according to a survey, students participating in home learning programs felt that the workload of online classes is larger than that of regular classes. They also said that normal classes may have been difficult, but having friends made it much more manageable and less stressful. The general consensus is that home learning programs, although highly beneficial and a good alternative to schools as schools are closed, still require some getting used to by students, as it is a novel concept and students are not habituated with this.
A major concern that was noted was that various students from India took admissions abroad in countries like USA, UK, Australia, etc., and had to return, leaving their courses incomplete because these countries were badly affected due to COVID 19. Proper assessment of students and taking exams is in a stumbling block as there is still isn't an application which monitors students' activity while they take an online exam. Due to this, many boards decided not to take the remaining exams. They used an assessment technique which is based on grades of previously held exams and pre test school assessments, leading to unequal distribution and mixed reactions from the students. There has also been loss in jobs of the youth who were already employed in different companies. This pandemic has affected the youth lives to a large extent. The youth will be able to cope with the situation, but it may take some time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Meghna. Now I request all the participants to bear with us. We will take just 2 or 3 minutes and declare the results. And it is very heartwarming to see so much female participants, but also it is very alarming that no male participant is there. So all the male students, please take care of that.
So our result has already prepared. At first, I want to thank Amrita Mitro, our professor, assistant professor, Department of English, for conducting this program very smoothly. And I also want to thank Dr. Sudipto Das, Dr. Uddalok Datto, and Dr. Animesh Mondol for uh, for taking the responsibility of judging the competitions. And I want to thank all the participants for their active participation and very good deliberation. Our topic, most of the participants covered. I also heard their lecture, their point of view, and most of the speaker, they mainly covered the challenges facing by the youth, or in the sense more challenges facing by the students. The problem of the students, most of the speaker they highlighted. Though our topic maybe on the broader aspect, the challenges faced by the youth. So if they try to highlight on the other broader aspect also, it will be more better. But overall, the presentation of all the participants were very good. But we have to select only 3 participants. All the participants, they will get the certificate. Now, on the basis of our judgment, now total 50 marks. We have 3 judges, each evaluated on the basis of 50. Total 150 marks. Our total marks for judgment 150, and out of 150, and we have 7 participants today. Third position. The third position today, debate competition, third position goes to Afreen Naz, Department of English. She got 113 marks out of 150. Third position. And the second position got by Daisy Sengupta, Department of Commerce. Her score 114 out of 150. And the first position goes to Meghna Lal, Department of Economics. She got 119 marks out of 150. So these 3 are our winner. The first position Meghna Lal, second position Daisy Sengupta, and third position Afrin Naz. The certificate will be issued very shortly. We will issue through online mode. And once again, I want to thank the National National Nehru Yuva Kendra, Paschim Bardhaman districts, and in collaboration with the West Bengal State Aid Prevention and Counseling Secretary, and all the participants and all our fellow colleagues, our esteemed teachers, and the member of the organizing committee who daily work hard with a short period of time, arrange everything so smoothly. So thank you all, and I want to say this is the close of our session. Thank you very much. Pradeep Babu, if you want to say something, please tell.
Thank you, sir, for organizing the program successfully. We hope in future we also when and as required will help from you, and I wish every success of the candidate. The first candidate will go to the state level competition. Just audio recording of the audio will have to send. and on that basis, the state level judge will select the result. So thank you, sir, to you and all your team, and Dr. Suman Ranjan Das. He has nicely elaborated the COVID-19 pandemic, and all the professor who has taken the responsibility to organize the program. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We're looking forward for many such program with your organization.
Yes,
We
sir.
are and one announcement is there. The Meghna Lal got the first position. She will represent state. Okay. District. She will represent district. We will inform you regarding the procedure of participation of the district level competition later on. And we from the college, and we will give you the contact number of our coordinator, Mr. Pradeep Saha. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.